Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the live version of the Thursday Night Football Prediction and Preview Show. I'm your host, Scott the Steamroller Steehn. And as always, I am joined alongside by one of the true veterans of this business. His success precedes him. It's the one and only Joe Duffy. Mr. Duffy, how are you, sir?
Well, Scott, I'm doing well. You just announced that I'm live, so that's always a good start. You know the old saying, I read the obituaries every morning, and if my name's not in them, it's a good start to the day.
Joe, we've talked a little bit about your background. You started with Scorephone, right?
Yeah, I started in 1986 while I was still in college with Dial Sports. That was the old 976 numbers, and it's amazing. People our age and older, they might even remember it. It's amazing that when I talk to people, so many people do remember the old commercials that had the cheerleaders that would go 900-976-1313. That's where I got my start, and then after college in 1988, went to the free score phones here in Atlanta, and I've been a professional sports handicapper ever since. I haven't figured out what I want to do when I grow up, but I'm pretty good at this and making some pretty good money at it. So maybe I'll just keep doing this until I can figure out what the heck I want to do with my life.
If you added the years of our experience together, you would come up with someone old enough to collect Social Security. That's what I'm saying. So
I'm getting close there myself. Don't let my youthful, extremely good looks. I know most people think I'm about 23 or so when I go to a bar. Of course, I always get carded, and they can't believe that I'm 21. But
absolutely. All right. So enough of that. We got an interesting NFC East battle here this week, and after week one, it looked like this would be no contest at all as the Dallas Cowboys went in and rolled up the Cleveland Browns, who we have since discovered appear to be a pretty bad football team, Joe. And then Dallas, the last 2 weeks, that defense hasn't showed up at all. That defense that terrorized Deshaun Watson all over the field for 60 minutes in week one has been nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, we've got a Giants team that's probably not as bad as they appeared in week one. Let's break it down, buddy. How you looking at this one?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because, the NFL is about overreaction. And from our standpoint, it's about exploiting that, which is regression to the mean. Clearly, the Cowboys do seem to miss Dan Quinn, although they showed some fight clearly in the fourth quarter last week. Really, from my standpoint, they probably made the game look a little closer than it was. They still definitely have some serious concerns on defense, but again, they did look to be a little bit better than that. This is a game that last I checked, Dallas was laying 6 and 45.5. So that opened up at 4 and 44.5. So obviously the public is betting on the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, according to my metrics, and I subscribe to quite a few of these, and they're all about the same, but I got 83% of the bets and 80% of the money on Dallas. That's one of the strongest consensus plays that I've seen all year. And I talked about before, when it comes to contrarian, I prefer betting the number of tickets, going against the number of tickets, than it is the money. Although I've heard, the alternative, hey, you want to root for whoever the sports books are rooting for. But 66% of the wagers and 60% of the handle is on the over. So the public has clearly made their statement. They like the over and they like the favorite, which isn't the most uncommon thing. I mean, heck, years ago, you could automatically assume the public was going to be betting on road favorites. That's not so much always the case now, but they still lean towards road favorites, and usually the biggest consensus plays of the entire week are road favorites. But, we got plenty of systems on this game, some angles, and even some organic handicapping, and maybe, I guess, later on in the show, we'll even talk about some prop bets that I'm taking a look at, and even one or two that I've already wagered on.
Joe, let's talk about that, because it's a common thought among bettors that the books want to have exactly the same amount of action on each side. So no matter what the outcome, they take home the juice. But in the last 5 to 10 years, that started to change a little bit as books have used more advanced analytics, making more confident selections. They're not afraid to take a side these days. They're not afraid to dare you to go one way if they're feeling the other way. And how has that impacted what we're trying to do here?
Well, the one thing that I have noticed is that road favorites in recent years have actually become a better play. When I first got started in this industry, we talked about it when I started betting. I started betting in the 80s, but started selling picks and making some pretty good money in 1988, that home dogs used to be such a great play. Now road favorites.
Money in the bank. Yep.
It was, and especially the Monday night home dogs, and all the dynamics have changed because that used to be the marquee game of the week, and the crowd was always so fired up. But lately, road favorites have actually become good plays, and I think that's because of the rules, the way they are, that benefit the offenses. Although, of course, this year we haven't seen tons of high scoring, so it's kind of trending in the opposite direction. But a lead isn't really safe anymore. It's not like it used to be, where teams can certainly throw their way back into games because, like you said, it's so tough to defend the pass. You can barely touch the receiver. I do believe that is the main reason, not so much because of odds makers over adjusting, but I think it's because teams no longer feel safe with the lead and they are running up the score. That is why road favorites have become much better play than they were in recent years. But yeah, in some respects, I do miss those days of the 80s and the 90s where I would strongly lean towards those home underdogs, and especially, like I said, Monday Night Football came almost would blindly bet the Monday Night Football home dog, but like I said, those days are long gone.
Yep, they really are. They've also kind of made a lot of their lines teaser proof. There used to be a lot of good teaser opportunities. There's of course Stanford Wong, who kind of reinvented the game of blackjack, did the same for teasers, but they have been quote unquote Wong proofed. So that ship has sailed. So now we have a new horizon. We have new skills that we got to unveil. Let's talk a little bit about these two teams and break them down. You know, Dallas, you talked about that game against the Ravens. It actually was a little more closer than it appeared. That Dallas was able to recover an onside kick. I think maybe the first onside kick of the season, or at least that I've seen.
Yes. Yes.
And they were able to get that back. They closed it up. But this was a Ravens team that came out with a game plan, and they said, we're going to run the football until you stop us. Well, guess what, Joe? Yeah. They never stopped them. Ravens ran 45 times for 271 yards. That's 6.1 yards per carry. That is just dreadful. Lamar only had to throw 15 passes. Of course, he completed 12 of them. And, you know, once you've got the defense thinking one way, it definitely opens up opportunities in the other direction. And it's not just a one-off for this Dallas defense. They gave up 4.9 yards per carry to the Browns and the Saints. So running teams that are successful are beating this Dallas defense like a drum.
There's no question, but again, that's what coaches are paid for, to make those adjustments. That's why I have regression of the mean. Now, one of the stats that I love to use, although quite frankly, in this game, it hasn't really come to prominence, but delta points scored and delta points allowed. And basically what that is how many points a team, for example, in this case, delta points allowed, how many points the Cowboys have given above what was expected in their team total. So that's been one of the key stats that I use. But again, honestly, it doesn't play that big of a factor tonight. But usually as a general rule of thumb, again, I'm going to keep using the term. It's important that I use the term because it is so important. The regression of the mean applies more in the NFL than any other sport. Maybe not so surprisingly, NBA is second. It seems that the college sports, with college football topping it, followed by college basketball, it's more of momentum. But in the professional sports, especially in the NFL, it is about making adjustments. So for the most, as a general rule of thumb, the Cowboys defense should adjust. They've been playing below expectations, especially the last two games. I do look for the Cowboys, even in a short week, to play a little bit better defense. Of course, I guess it kind of helps that they're not exactly, facing the Miami Dolphins in 1974 when it comes to the running game. But so don't, a lot, too many people, that's the number one mistake people make. They'll say, I watched them last week and they couldn't stop them. And then they jump to crazy conclusions the next week. I think just about any bookmaker will tell you, pro gamblers like me will tell you, the biggest mistake the public makes is, I saw them last week and.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. And for those of you that are new to the world of sports betting, new to some of the terms, regression to the mean simply means that if a recent performance is too high or below where the expectation is, the theory is that they will eventually either progress or regress to that baseline of expectations. Is that a pretty good explanation? You have anything to add to that?
No, it's true. And like I said, especially in the NFL, because it does vary from sport to sport, but underachieving teams are undervalued. Overachieving teams are overvalued. And again, this may not always be the case in college football or college basketball, but definitely in the NFL. And then again, there's a reason that these coaches and these players are at this level, that, they know how to bounce back. They know how to make adjustments.
Absolutely. Now, do you expect a big adjustment in the Dallas run defense, or do you think that Singletary is going to have some success?
Again, it's one of those that the Cowboys are almost certainly going to play much better than they have in recent weeks. As far as my prop bets, I didn't really have any super strong prop bets as far as that is concerned, although the Wendell Robinson, I do think it will get over 33.5 yards receiving, really more so because the Dallas zone that'll leave Robinson open as a safety valve. So I do think they're going to be throwing to him a little bit more. But yeah, the fact that, again, that the Dallas is playing not quite as good of a running team, and that NFL teams especially do seem to make adjustments, I do think the Cowboys will improve drastically from the way they looked last week. And the odds makers, again, they're adjusted. They know what the public's going to be doing. Joey Bag of Donuts is going to make too many conclusions based on what he saw last week. Although then again, as I said, the public is actually betting Dallas in this one, but they are betting the over.
Right. And X-Rush Diamonds has a great point, sort of like pitchers in baseball. And I think that's a great comp right there. You have somebody that's had 17 good starts in a row, and all of a sudden they come out and get shelled. The expectation is that they're not going to get shelled the next time out. They're going to regress to where that baseline has been earlier in the season. Now, Joe, I've got a theory, and I think when it comes to defensive football in the NFL especially, I think if you have a problem of getting beat by the passing game, I think that's more of a schematic problem. I think that can be fixed by different schemes and different assignments of responsibility. If you have a problem stopping the run, I think that's more of a personnel problem, and you don't have the right players in place at the right time. What do you think of my wild ass theory?
Well, yeah, and one of my theories is, especially as the year goes on, it gets exacerbated a little bit more, because sometimes you got some problem with size and that the defenses can wear down. So I'm not going to totally agree. I'm not going to totally disagree with that. Injuries are, of course, a big part. And, it depends. Maybe one week that the one coach just came a little bit better prepared than the other coach, because, like I said, for the most part, there is still a little bit of regression. So all in all, I still think you win games with personnel, quality personnel, then you win with coaching. Coaching is enormously important. So, that's where you really want to take a look at the injuries. If a team is coming off of a bad performance against the run, are they going to get some guys back this week? Are they banged up a little bit more? So I don't know. That's kind of I know we're in the political season. I kind of gave almost a politician's answer of it's neither a yes nor a no, but I will not necessarily emphatically disagree with you by any stretch of the imagination.
All right, that's fair. And before we get to our individual plays, let's talk one more thing. Is Devin Singletary he's not an elite running back, but is he your workhorse? Is he good enough to be an every down running back, Joe?
Honestly, again, it's another one of these political answers. I think now where the teams are playing 17 games and it's just so physical, and it's more of a case of, well, I said physical, it's more of a case of physics. The athletes are becoming bigger and stronger and faster. No, I think you really have to be like the Dallas Cowboys, where you really need a two-headed monster. I don't think when you have a true bell cow running back that's sustainable over a 17-game season, then you want to play, 3-4 games in the playoffs. So for the most part, I think a backup running back or a number 2 running back, or really co-number 1 running backs, are important. And on a short week, if you're talking about some of those props, probably even less so, where a bell cow running back is going to get a majority of the carries. So there's very few, I think, now in the NFL in 2024, with the extended schedules and these athletes just getting so much bigger and stronger. That's why you don't have these running backs that are lasting, 5. I was Travis Henry as an exception. You got some exceptions. I know Gore was just amazing specimen, but for the most part, the days of the guys like Emmitt Smith that are going to be among the league leaders 7-8 years, the shelf life of running backs is much shorter. And that's, in addition to the fact the game has changed, we talked about the rules, but that's why you don't see running backs drafted as high as they used to be. Not only just the way the game has changed because of the rules, but also because the running backs just can't take that punishment the way they used to be. So I don't think there are too many guys out there that are truly number one running backs, and then you have a backup that's only going to carry it 5 or 6 times a game.
Well, and pass blocking has become an integral part for running backs. I know, speaking from experience with the Chiefs, if you're a running back who can't block for Andy Reid, you're not playing. You're not getting any snaps.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and they have a pretty good quarterback they need to protect. That's for sure there in Kansas City. But that's really true with every team, and it's because the ratio of passing is going up. You still have teams like maybe the 49ers that still kind of like to play a little bit of old-fashioned football. But yes, the way that blitzing is and the fact that teams are much more passing-oriented than they were when you and I were much younger watching football, there's no question the ability to pick up blitzes, especially, is so important for running backs.
Yeah, the zone blitz has really changed a lot of running back responsibility.
Yeah, and you got to be ready for that hot read too, because you might be that option. So you got to both be aware of picking up the blitz, but you might wind up getting that screen pass as an emergency option too. So yeah, you definitely got to be thinking on all cylinders for sure when you're a running back. So it's probably maybe a little tougher. It's not quite as tough physically because you're not carrying the ball quite as much as you used to, but it's a little bit more of a thinking man's game than ever when you're a running back.
I totally agree. So as far as running backs go for this team, these two teams, I got to be honest, Joe, I don't really like any of them. On the Giants side, you've got Singletary, who we've talked about, averaging 4.7 yards per carry, very good. But then you've got Tyrone Tracy, he's at 3.4 yards per carry. That's no bueno. On the Dallas side, you've got Rico Dowdle is the number one back this season, and he's less than 4 yards per carry, as is the ghost of Ezekiel Elliott. So even though neither one of these teams do a great job of stopping the run, is kind of the downgrade in the running backs that they've had to face so far going to play into tonight's game.
Yeah, obviously Dallas, when Ezekiel Elliott is for his first time around with Dallas, he's not quite that running back that he was, but it's interesting that you should mention because of that, Dowdle, I actually like him over the 55.5 rushing and receiving yards. In small part, he's 26 years old. He is the younger, obviously, of the two-headed monster, so he'll probably get a few more touches tonight than he would be if it was on a regular week. So the fact that it's a short week, I think that will benefit him as far as the play calling is concerned. And as you mentioned, the Giants are pretty weak against the run. And if the odds makers, we kind of alluded to this last week, if the odds makers are correct and Dallas is leading a good part of this game, he will be running the ball. And that was kind of, the problem. Dallas didn't really have that many opportunities to run last week. Of course, you were talking about yards per carry, but again, repetition's good. Sometimes running backs need to get in the groove. They didn't really have that opportunity last week where they were getting blown out from the beginning. So that factors into the equation a little bit. But yeah, Dallas doesn't have a clear-cut star running back right now. And the days of Double E, he's still a quality running back, but not like he was when he was, taking his shirt off on the balcony 6 years ago or whatever the heck he was doing. So yeah, no, neither one of these teams are elite running games. Dowdle probably, arguably, might have the biggest upside. We'll see what happens. But as far as, possible all-pro selections, I don't know if you got any running backs that'll be playing tonight that are likely all-pros.
I think you're right. I do think that's a good angle with Dowdle because so far they've kind of been close to splitting carries. Dowdle has 23 carries. Ezekiel has 19. But I think with the short week combined with the age and combined with what these teams want to do, I think it is a great opportunity for Dowdle to get some more carries and go over his yardage total. So, all right, Joe, this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm going to make a pick, and I'll tell everybody right up front, I do have my best bet on this game, and it is on the total. But I'm going to talk about what I think is going to happen in the game here. Joe, I'm going to fade the public. I'm going to take the Giants here. I think the Giants are going to be able to have some success running the football. I do believe Dallas will be better. But I think that is going to be the Giants' game plan, and I think they're going to be able to come out and run the football again until Dallas can stop them. As we know, running the football takes up the clock. You don't have stops for incomplete passes, and I think this is a Giants team that is going to be able to have some success moving up and down the field. I like this number at 5.5. I think that's the solid play. They're in front of a home crowd. They feel a little bit of something they haven't felt this season, at least after the first week. They feel a little bit of hope. A little bit of hope, Joe. Maybe the top of that division isn't quite as strong as it was. And Washington and the Giants, they maybe see a little path to victory. And it starts here for the Giants. It starts tonight with this big intra-division.
No, I can certainly understand that. Now, I do have the side in total as premium plays as well as a college football side, and I gave the analysis. I think you're going to like the intel I like on every single play. But I will tell you up front, and this might be a hint, you may be able to read something into this. Betting against the public is generally a very good idea. I'm a big contrarian player. Now, it's not always about pure percentages, but that's another story altogether. But yeah, betting against the public is never a bad idea. Really, if anything, I'm going to look at, because I was doing a bunch of work today. After we get off of here, the wife and I, we got to run out, pick up some food because I live outside of Atlanta where we're going to be getting some storms. But I'm going to be taking a long look at some of these CC Lamb props, and especially the over. I like it. He owned it. He had a bad game last week, a little bit of a bad attitude. He wound up owning it and apologizing, and he seemed very sincere. He's a talented wide receiver who I think they're going to wind up targeting him. And it looks like Andre Phillips is likely going to be out for the Giants. One of my reports said he is going to be out, which will mean that he's going to have a mismatch against Deonte Banks. But I do think that if anything, they're going to try to get CC Lamb involved in the game quite early, and I will be taking a long look at any of his over props, especially I think in receptions, because I think they're just going to try to get him to the ball, let him make plays. But even when it comes to things like total yards, also another sharp that I exchange information with, he really thinks the Cowboys, after their horrible effort last week with the fact they showed some light, if there's such thing, a team going to be fired out, he thinks that it's actually the road team that's going to come out fired up. And I didn't even look to verify it. He said he got Dallas at -0.5 point in the first quarter. That would seem to be a pretty good bet, because you could see why Dallas would come out with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and come out early. So if it is still widely available that you can get Dallas at -0.5, -1 in the first quarter, that would be quite a tempting bet. And like I said, shortly after I get done talking to you, I'm going to take a long look at some of these CC Lamb props as well, especially over.
I got you. I want to welcome one of our regulars here, Bronco Devil. He's got Neighbors over 6.5 at a little plus money juice there. What do you think, Joe? You think the Giants are going to be able to get the ball to Malik Neighbors 7 times?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely think that there's plenty of reason to get the ball out to the receivers very quickly. So I do think the Giants will be doing a lot of the safe passing for sure. I even mentioned that with the zone that the Cowboys play, that it's more of design that not allow the long pass, although you might disagree with that if you did watch the game last week. They gave up plenty of big plays, but the way that the Cowboys do play defense, it's more designed to not give up the long pass. They're going to be giving up the short pass a little bit more. So I think over the receptions more than over yards is generally a pretty good bet against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I think that's a solid play, because Danny Dimes and Neighbors have really found a groove. He's been targeted 37 times in 3 games, Joe. He's caught just 23 of them, and there's a discussion to be had there about targets versus catches, but he's averaging 7.67 catches per game. I think that trend continues. I think this kid's going to be a star.
Yeah, and not only that, I also think as a general rule of thumb, when you have a quarterback trying to establish himself like Danny Dimes, you're going to go really more to your 1 and 2 guys. You're not going to spread it out. It's usually the veteran proven guys like your boy Patrick Mahomes who will spread the ball out a lot more. So especially I think in a short week where you maybe haven't had a chance to get too fancy, you really go top heavy with your number 1, number 2 targets.
Terrific points. All right. Guys, that's it. That's the Thursday Night Football breakdown. Joe, anything else you want to add?
No, not much. You know how much I love system plays, so there are a few systems to look at. Thursday night road teams in a game that's not expected to be a blowout. And this game the road team is 35-9. That would benefit Dallas. But then again, home underdogs off a win as a road underdog. There are several other factors that apply tonight are good plays, 167, 117, and 13. That would favor the Giants. Now, I know you said you like the under. Since 2015, if one of the teams had at least one fumble their last game, the current total is 45 or higher. It does go over 137, 99, and 4, and it is a little bit over that right now. So there aren't. I'll be honest with you, it's not like any of those. Usually, I like a system that is in the NFL usually about up 70 or more units, or has a Z-score of 4.5 or above. So none of those are overwhelming systems, but they're certainly corroborating systems.
Very good. And meanwhile, I'm hoping for a good game. We did this last Thursday about the Jets-Patriots, and that was not a good game. That was a very, very one-sided. That was a Thursday night Amazon game is what that turned into, Joe.
Yeah, well,
like all the other crap games they've had for the last year.
Hey, if you bought my picks, it was a good game. I'm actually, and our clients know, we're 6-0 with our name plays. That was my AFC game of the year. In my intel, what I said is two of the best systems I ever have. Going off of teams on a short week off an overtime game and going against first-year coaches early in the season were great plays. It was legitimately one of my biggest games that you'll get all year. So I thought it was a great game, but you're right. If I didn't have any money on the game, it would have been a pretty boring game, but I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. And just to join in the horn touting status, I also had the Jets as my best bet in that game. I just didn't see much out of this New England offense, and that's it's one of those rare times where it played out almost exactly like I thought it would. So I relish those moments, as do you, I know. So sometimes we look really, really smart. Sometimes it looks like we've never seen a football game before in our life. But the idea is to keep the smart plays much, much more frequent than the I don't know plays, right?
No, that's for sure. No, I can honestly say, though, I had as much intel on what's not like these games come up very often, but I do have, some pretty strong plays this weekend for sure.
Excellent. You make sure you can check out both Joe and I's premium plays over at the winnersandwhiners.com website. Just click on expert tabs. You'll see everybody's record. You'll see who's hot. You'll see a list of everybody that's available. And we certainly invite you to stop over there and grab our plays for this week. All right, guys, as always, thanks very much for joining us. We're just growing this little show week by week, Joe. We're having some fun. We're doing it live. I like interacting with everybody. So everybody, good luck tonight. Whatever way you decide to go, I hope it's profitable for you and you have a profitable weekend. Joe and I will be back next Thursday afternoon. This is generally going to be a 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central Time show. We were a little late today. I had some things I had to take care of, but going forward, he said confidently, you can mark it in your calendar for 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central. Until next week, I'm Scott Steehn. He's Joe Duffy. Good luck on all of your plays. We'll see you then. Take care, everybody.